first thing I'm looking at is his enthusiasm, which is the most important thing. What he does when he grabs the wedge or the pillow doesn't matter so much. It's how keen he is to engage that really is the judge. And I never let him have it unless he really wants it. He's got to show me with every ounce of his body that he wants it. No. No. Yes, that's the one. Oh, good boy. This is the reason I wanted this. Just so as what I'm assessing now is his keenness to sort of just play the game and have a tug without the stress of me being in his face. So if I come up close here, I can't really judge this as an independent thing because there's other factors like the fact that I'm really close. So now when I move in, I'm saying, is it stressing him the fact that I'm sort of in his face and standing right over him? And is that impacting on the bite? And for this dog it isn't, which is great. But also, I need to assess the things independently. So right now I'm just assessing his grip and how keen he is to engage in this game. Okay? And that's about as good as it gets for a dog. How old are they? 8, 9 months, something like that? 8 months? Approximately? 8 months, yep. Can't ask for any better than that. I'm just going to let him pull and then I'm going to let him have a win on that. Just bring him in fairly short just so he doesn't wander off with it too much. And try and just spin him around to me. Just let him sit on that for a minute. Just in a simple exercise like this, we could honestly, and I'm not even exaggerating, we could spend half a day on it, and there's about 200 things that I would need to say about it, okay? So, right from the beginning, we're going to discourage the dog from running away with the object and possessing it too much, okay? In the old days, we used to do a lot of that, but then what we found is that when the dogs went operational for police and stuff like that, if they ripped a bit of clothing off like a jacket, they'd just grab it and they'd run. And that perpetuated up for years and years. It was only just the last couple of years, with the police especially, that's been a problem. So remind me tomorrow, and I'll show you dogs on video, that don't do that. And if I drop that piece of equipment, they'll just spit it out and come straight back onto the person instantaneously. And I mean within a second or two, you know. They really couldn't care less about that. But in the early stages of development, we don't really have a problem that they're going to do that. I'm going to do another one, yeah? You're not going to go too far away? Yep.
Just don't want to burn him out.
Sure. Another thing that, there's two sort of behaviours that I want when the dog gets on the bite that I'm sort of assessing. The first one was the pulling, which is really good. And the thing I like about pulling for young dogs is that it teaches them to grip strong. Because you can, as you could well imagine, if you're going to grab hold of something and then you're going to pull it hard, if your grip isn't strong, you'll slip off, agreed? So it forces the dog to clamp down with his grip and really grab a really strong grip. Whereas otherwise, if he wasn't pulling and he was just sort of standing there, he could almost be mouthing the object, just have his mouth around it with hardly any pressure, and it wouldn't come out, okay? But by him pulling, it teaches him to grip. So the pulling is more about teaching the grip than it is about any other behaviour. The other thing I want him to learn, which is, there's a fair percent of innate tendency towards this, is that when he gets the opportunity and things go still, and it's not a tug of war between me and the dog, that the dog re-engages. We call that a rebite, okay? Or a counter. So the dog will drive in. And then again, if I show you videos of the dogs when they're adults, because you have to understand, whenever we're training dogs, we're thinking 15 steps ahead. So everything I'm doing now is completely in line with what I want as my final behaviours, okay? That's why I don't want him carrying the object off. That's why I want him gripping and pulling. That's why I want him re-engaging on that bite. So watch this time, and I'll tell you, watch his mouth. Don't look at me when we do it. Watch his mouth, and you'll see this action here. So this is the dog's mouth. It'll be like this. I'll do it at 2 different angles so you can see. When I hold it still, the dog will drive in, okay? So I'll do that again for you. The dog should drive in, okay? So it looks like this. He's got a grip like this. And then when I hold it dead still, I did it once before, the dog will drive in and fill his mouth. At that point, we would mark it with yes or good boy, right? So we just use a conditioned stimulus there, conditioned reinforcer, something that's already established. I mean, if you had a non-terminating condition clicker, as long as it didn't terminate the activity, you could even use a clicker for that. We just say yes or good dog, right? Whichever one, whatever's conditioned. And then, as the primary reward after the conditioned reward, so it's yes, and then after that, I then play a bit of a tug of war, which is the thing he likes the most. So I go still, teaching the dog, because he doesn't really like the stillness, it's not a lot of fun, he wants the tug and the game. Then he drives in, I mark that as the correct behaviour with yes, and then I move it around and I play a bit of a game. And then I do it again, I go still, and the dog learns that he can reactivate me by driving in. And then we extend that to the next step, where as the dog matures, that becomes his counter to any stress. So anybody puts any pressure on him, tries to hit him, tries to fight him, tries to stand over him or smother him, he drives in, so he counters back. It's like punching back. You understand what I mean? For our working dogs. But that's so empowering for the dogs that we now even do that even for the dogs in search and rescue or scent detection, where we don't care about them countering from a sort of a fight perspective. But it's so empowering that it just drives the dogs. And the best dogs, and again, we've got the biggest collection of working dog videos in the world. I mean that literally, okay? So, and the dogs will just go bang, 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 and be just countering all the time, as if to say, keep playing, keep going. Some dogs are doing it because they want the game, others are doing it because they want to counter the threat. You understand what I mean? But it's all about the dog being empowered, that he thinks he can control the outcomes, which is a lot about what all dog training is always about, you know? So if you were to interview our dogs, and you said, why do you keep driving in? He goes, that keeps the game going. I keep him reactivating because otherwise he'll go still and I don't want him to, okay? Or another dog would say, you know, why are you driving in like that? And he would go, because it stops him countering me and threatening me. It gives me the power. It puts me in control, okay? So we don't want, effectively, we don't want the dog to be a passive participant in the game. We want him to be active, where he thinks that his behaviours are achieving outcomes. So the pulling, I then let him have success and he wins it. So he thinks that this lock on and pull, grip hard and pull, will achieve success with me winning this. And the driving in reactivates the game and or is the counter to any pressure or stress that you can put on, yeah? Okay? Now people like Nick and Beck and others here today, you see that in our adult dogs all the time, you know, it's exactly the same sort of scenario. And except with the adult dogs, it's with intent. I mean, when they're pulling, I can't even hold the end of the lead. The dog is dragging, and when he's driving in, the dog is literally smashing into you with enthusiasm, you know, and a lot of energy. But having said that, this is as good as it ever gets for an 8-month-old dog, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd be rating this a 9.5 because there's nothing more that I could ask for. He's showing, his enthusiasm is sensational. He's pulling hard on the lead and totally wants to engage. He's got no fear or stress. He's not reserved in any way, shape or form. He just wants to completely engage. When he does bite, he locks on and grips hard. Okay, he's not moving around and sort of a bit stressed on the grip or anything, which is always a little bit of showing a bit of nerd. If the dog tends to move around, a little bit uncomfortable, he just locks on like a vice. And then he pulls hard, which is great. And then when I go passive, he drives in. To a T. Everything is perfect. It's rarely ever this perfect. Okay, so